Testing, testing. Hello. Hey there, I'm Patrick, your friendly neighborhood shaman, and sometimes known as the Dread Cartoonist Patrick. And I am a shaman cartoonist, and this is an experiment. I have not done a video like this before from the overview. I attempted one during the pandemic, which I will put the link in the comments or in the description of this video so you can see where it started. But this particular comic, I did a video during the pandemic. I did a class with Lisa Williams, the well-known psychic medium, and I was working on this comic way back then, a few years ago actually, and I did a video of my penciling it. Then I wanted to do a video of, I don't know if you can see me, I wanted to do a video of me inking it as a follow-up, but then it never materialized, and this comic just got tucked into my to-do folder until recently, and I'm like, I really need to finish inking that. And so I started inking it. So you can see I do inking in a couple of stages. My first inking, this is basically just tracing all the pencil lines. And then I go back, I already started, you can see where I go back and I thicken the lines and color in the dark patches. So that's what I'm going to do today. I don't know how far I'm going to get during this video, but I thought I would bring you along as I ink and talk. So welcome. I hope you enjoy this. And I always keep a couple of sheets of paper underneath it as a good cushion. You might recognize that's the thumbnail from the most recent comic that I posted on my Drawing Breath -comic.blogspot.com blog. I just keep random pieces of paper underneath so that it kind of cushions the pen. And so now that I've got most of these, I've got everything inked in, and I will be doing more of these videos so that you get a full palette of what goes into them. But when I've gotten the pencil portion done and I go to inking them, what's interesting is when I pencil a comic, I always draw the figures and figure out the situation, the layout and everything. And then I add the words. Because at that point, it's like the flow of the imagery of the illustrations is important. And I can play with the wording, I can change it, I can substitute words if they don't fit into the allotted spot. I can kind of run them, like try different spaces that they go in to complement the illustrations. But then when I come to ink it, I always ink in the lettering first, because at that point, the lettering is stable and I can always shift a line so that it's not like interfering with the lettering. So, as you can see, so this is a comic I started, like I said, back in the pandemic. I was doing a spiritual business class with Lisa Williams, and it was an awesome class. I got a lot out of it. But one of the things that she asked me personally was that she wanted to see a video of me doing my comics, and so I did one. like I said, was the penciling version of this. And then I stopped. I was gonna do a follow-up when I inked it, but it never happened. So it's happening now. So once I get the main lines inked in, I always go through. I was raised on Hanna-Barbera cartoons, like Yogi Bear and Huckleberry Hound, and one of the things that always stuck out to me was, and later I saw it when I got to know more about art history, I saw it in more Art Nouveau art, where they have like the heavy outer line, right, and a softer, a thinner inner line. And so once I have the preliminary inking done, I go through and I thicken all the lines appropriately, trying to keep the outside lines, the silhouette lines, thicker, and maybe not thickening the inner lines quite as much. But like everything else, there are no rules, only guidelines. Okay. So there, and you can notice there's a little bit of sloppiness here, but I don't care so much on the hair, because once I get the outer line, see, and this is one of the benefits of doing it the way I do it. I can thicken the line. I can, if this needs to drop down a little bit closer to the beard, I can thicken that up a little bit, or I can, I can thicken it. You got one line, I can thicken it on this side of the line, or I can thicken it on this side of the line, depending on what I need to do to just kind of subtly tweak the drawing. So, but once I get the hair outlined, let's outline this too real quick, just to be thorough. And I draw all my comics by hand, without rulers or anything. And then I fill in the hair, and I leave it kind of, I don't know if wispy is the right word, but it doesn't have to be solid black like the eyeballs. That way it makes it feel like hair. And then And what I usually do is I'll go through to re-ink all the illustrational parts first. And usually I leave once I have the words inked, I just kind of leave them. I don't want to mess with them because it's important. I can mess with the lines on the drawings without wrecking anything. But if I try to go over the words, sometimes, your pen slips or whatever, and I want to make sure it's legible. And sometimes what I'll do is one of the newest things in the 21st century, I'll take and upload it to my laptop. And then if I need to accentuate the words, I'll go through and I'll just make the letters a little bit thicker with my laptop. But I try not to, it's like, I love drawing, pencil and ink. I have a friend who's been trying to get me to get one of the digital art things where you're drawing on the screen and all of that. And I could have fun with it, just like I have fun. One of the things I like to do when I've got spare time is I'll take individual images from a comic on my laptop, and I'll use the Paint 3D thing and color them, which is kind of fun. But when I'm drawing them, I like to make sure I'm doing it, how do I say it? Pen and ink keeps it, analog, if that's the right word, or it's more meditative because it's tactile. I'm moving the paper around. I've got the pen. Changing the pressure of the pen on the page. I get different lines, etc. So it's like this thing responding. It's like it feels more authentic. When I do things digitally, it just, you can change anything, and then and not to disparage anyone who does that kind of art. This is just the way I do it because it feels more authentically me, and plus this is what I do. I have drawn comics literally for as long as I can remember. It's what I've always wanted to be. Even before being a shaman, I just always wanted to be a cartoonist. And so, and it's the drawing of them for me that is the important part. Getting to move the paper around so you have the different angles, etc. I feel kind of vulnerable doing this in front of people, but we'll see how that goes. Something, and then things. It's really kind of intuitive, right? It's like I said earlier. It's like kind of make the thicker lines on the outside and make them a little thinner on the inside. I didn't do so well there, keeping them thinner, but a panel like this where it's like the eyeball, the reaction is the important thing. I will keep those lines thicker, just like the outer edge. Trying to remember what the word is, and I was taking art in college. I said silhouette earlier, but there's this kind of drawing we do where we usually had somebody like a model sitting there, and then we had to draw them without our pen or pencil ever leaving the paper. There was a name for that, and I can't think of it off the top of my head right now. But because it was mostly just the outline, there wasn't a lot of detail. And like I like to darken these, but not really thicken them because it's like this, blah! That's the technical term, blah! Right, and then, as you can see, like, I fill in the characters or the illustrations first. Then I'll go back and I'll thicken the lines around the edges, and then I like the thought balloons or speech balloons or the panels. um, those lines I tend to keep a little bit thinner, and I thicken the outside of the panels and stuff. Again, it's all guidelines, no rules, and it really is how you feel in the moment. Sometimes I'll try something and it doesn't work. And so I have to try something different. And one thing that you might be asking yourself is like, why do you bother putting the thick lines around the hair if you're just going to color all in anyway? And the reason I do that is because you can if I didn't do that, it's like there would be nothing to contain. It would just be this pattern. There would be nothing to contain it, if that makes sense. I'm just talking off the top of my head right now, so sometimes terms don't come to me, but it looks totally different because so if I don't do those darker lines, I mean, it could work, but it's like there's nothing to contain, like in comparison to darkening these other lines, thickening those up. I don't know, it just doesn't feel right to me. It's like, this is really quick, so it's kind of blotchy, but so that's what it looks like without. And then if you add that, it just I guess maybe part of it is a style thing, because I do like the thick kind of Art Nouveau type thick lines around the edges, and so it's like consistency. Maybe it's just a sense of consistency that if I don't do that, see, it's like that looks like someone just kind of why are you drawing me? Get back to the page. All right. So that's that. Then I got these lovely wild turkeys to draw. I started inking this actually the day before Thanksgiving. I was like, okay, it's time to draw the turkeys. So, yeah. So again, I'll go through. And it is kind of a long, involved. I mean, I could do a lot more comics if I didn't take the time to do this part. But like I said earlier with the electronic thing, it's the drawing of the comics that's the important part to me. It's not the end product. And with the electronic stuff, to me, I'm not saying this is the way it is with everybody, but for me, it feels more like the accent is on the final projects. Like, oh, okay, look, got all these quick fixes and shortcuts so that you can get to the end product quickly. And to me, there's just something about pen and ink. And so I don't know if you, well, the page was right side up to you. I don't know if you read it or not, but this is, this comic is about an experience I had a few years ago, pre-pandemic, when I went on a vision quest. And the focus of that vision quest was to ask my guides if I were ready to be a shaman full time. Looks like this one's got a horn, doesn't it? Like a little rhino turkey. And so I went, and this was in Central Washington. Oh, I forgot to grab Windsor. I was going to show you Windsor. I'll grab them before I end the video. I'm sitting in the woods by myself on this vision quest for 3 days, asking the spirits, is it time for me to go full time? Is it time for me to let go of my day job and make being a shaman my full-time day job? And so I sat there for a whole day. Nothing happened the first day. See, I'm making these ones not quite as dark, quite as thick as the outside. And it was basically, come on guys, I'm a shaman, make something spiritual happen. You know, I'm asking my question, I'm praying, I'm meditating. And like, so I was kind of disappointed after the first day, like nothing really happened. And then the second day I'm sitting there and this whole parade of wild turkeys walked past my campsite. And I just started bawling, because turkey medicine is, well, turkey is the giveaway bird. You know, one turkey can feed a lot of people. And when the native peoples realized how much turkey was helping them, taking care of them, feeding them, they responded in reciprocity, and they would make sure that turkey had enough shelter, enough food, enough protection, enough places to roost, so that they could become the biggest, healthiest, best turkey that they could. And then when it came time So they would sacrifice and go out of their way to take care of Turkey in a symbiotic manner, not in a like farmer, not in like a European model, colonial model of resource and taking advantage of a resource, but as, you know, aho matakuasan, all my relations. Turkey was their relative. I should say still is, because they haven't gone anywhere. They're still here. But seeing Turkey as a relative, seeing Turkey as one of their relations that takes care of them by nourishing them, by feeding them, giving of herself to make sure they're okay. They responded with this beautiful reciprocity to make sure that the turkeys were taken care of as well. And so what that meant to me when I saw this parade of wild turkeys coming by my campsite, like in the nature of that, what I just said, it was like, well, when Turkey is present, it means that the environment is bountiful and there's enough space and enough energy to support what you are doing, to support you. And so that was my answer. When I saw them parading by, I knew the answer was yes, that it was time to become a full-time shaman. And so I did. It took a couple of, well, it took a little while to actually go all the way. But I am now a 24/7 professional shaman. This is my day job. And I love my job. I just, when I was born, I was raised Catholic, and everybody assumed that I was going to become a priest. There were, it might have been because partially because I was firstborn or whatever, but the Corrigan clan in Ireland had a tendency to produce holy people. Of course, in that context, it was Christian or Catholic, right? Catholic nuns and priests and monsignors. And so it was expected that I was going to become a priest. And the priest who actually baptized me, Father Theory, great name for a priest, huh? I don't know what he did differently, but he he baptized me with the intention that I would become a priest. And I thought about it. It made sense to me when I was growing up, because I was always religious. I was always spiritual. When we go to Mass, I memorized the priest's part of the Mass. And I would say that along with the priest rather than the part of the congregation. And I just always, even, even or maybe especially in Catholic school, I went to Catholic school from first grade all the way through college. And I was always, I don't know if disappointed is the right word, but I was like, yay, we're going to Catholic school. People are going to want to talk about God and spirits and stuff like that. But not really. And as I found out, especially in high school, a lot of people would send the more troubled youth to Catholic school, expecting that would kind of straighten them out, which I don't know if it ever did or not. But so I didn't get, even though I was in Catholic school, I didn't get the spiritual nurturing that I had hoped for from my peers. And then when I was in college, I went to St. John's University in Minnesota. Can you tell? And I seriously considered, it was a monastery, Benedictine monastery, and I seriously considered joining the Brotherhood, becoming a monk. But that didn't quite feel right either, and by the time I was graduating, I'd already started reading books about Zen and Taoism, and then I met my my future ex-wife at college, and she was Wiccan, and so I got introduced to Wicca and paganism, and I just couldn't, what do I want to say here? It just made it the universality of religion and spirituality was just so obvious that I couldn't. We would talk about stuff. She would tell me about, like she was telling me about, in Wicca, there's the god and the goddess, the lord and the lady. And the goddess is basically the creator. The goddess is the one who birthed the universe, which makes a lot more sense than having a male deity. It also fits a lot with the more Taoist stuff, like Alan Watts, one of the people who most brought Zen and Taoism to the West. He talks about how we keep questioning, why did we come into the world? As if God is a craftsman, is a potter, and actually we came out of the world. Just like a flower comes out of the branch of the tree, or you come out of your mother's womb. We didn't come into the world, we came out of it. And so she would tell me these stories of the god and the goddess, how he was her son, like she gave birth to the god. She is like the eternal divine source, never dying, eternal. And he is the God, he is the manifest, like the physically manifest child of the goddess. And so his life, like all life, forgive me if I get this wrong, because it's been a while since I really thought about this, but he's the dancer, like Lord of the Dance, right? He's the one that dances through all of creation. He's the physical manifestation of the divine mother. And so he grows, he matures, and he dies, and then he's reborn at winter solstice, which is why the church changed Christmas to be on a day close to winter solstice. It's all the birth of the light. Anyway, so she would tell me that story, and I was, of course, at a Catholic college, we did a lot of ecumenical studies, like looking at different religions, different spiritualities, and comparing them, and all of that, and like getting deeper into, from the Benedictine point of view, like almost the stories behind the stories. And when she told me that about the lady, the Lord and the lady, and how he was her son that grew up, she bore him, he grew up, he was her consort, and then he died. I was like, when we had this conversation, I think we had just talked about that in a class I was taking about the Benedictine order. And I'm like, that's the story of Christ. Christ being the physical born aspect of God. He's still God, but he's also human. I'm going to check and see if there's... Oh, okay. I'm going to put that to the bottom. There's a little bump in there that's causing havoc. But anyway, so it's like, God so loved the world, he gave his only son. Jesus became flesh, became human, to live in the world temporarily, to save sinners, whatever. And then he died. And then he arose again, and then he ascended into heaven. And so it's like the basic thing of God was so much love that he couldn't be just one being. And that love became a human being. Anyway, when she was telling me that, I'm like, that is basically the story of the God and the Goddess, is basically the same story of Christ and being, born into the world. Anyway, so how did I get on that subject? So anyway, I've always been really spiritual, more spiritual than religious. And the Taoism and the Zen really spoke to me. And then I discovered paganism, and that really spoke to me. So I was able to expand, and more recently I took a class one time, was technically on death midwifery, but the teacher was talking about how when you're dealing with clients and dealing with death, you have to do something that she called jumping metaphors. And so if you're dealing with someone in hospice or whatever who's getting ready to die, and you're helping them, it's like introducing some ceremony or ritual to their lives to make their end more sacred, etc. But she says you want to jump metaphors, whatever their belief, whatever their religion, or whatever, you can fit it into the framework of whatever ceremony, etc. you do. And if they're Catholic, like I was, you could use Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. If they were pagan, you could use earth, air, fire, water. You find out what their belief system is and you adapt it. Not to trick them, but to use their own mythology to bring them home, to bring them comfort. Because all those beliefs, all those religions are basically based on the same thing. The light is the light, no matter what name you put on it, whether it's Allah or God or the goddess or Frank. It's all the same thing. And mythology is important. It's one of the most important things in the world. It's like stories. In some ways, stories are all we have. And so it's important. Stories and mythology are the way we individually and culturally process reality. And so to bring, instead of, jamming one form of spirituality down someone's throat, especially at the end of their life when they're supposed to be preparing to leave and everything, you want to use the stories that are meaningful to them, the mythology that's meaningful to them, and that's why there are so many different tarot decks, because the symbolism of the tarot, the stories, the mythology behind the tarot, the stories are the important part, the main what do I want to say? The stories are all basically the same. And it's just a different name, the stories, the meanings, wear different clothing in different cultures or different people's minds. And so, or one person might respond to, Jesus and Mary or the saints or whatever, that's meaningless to someone else. If you're preparing them to die, you don't want them to be, you want them to be as comfortable as much as you can. You want to tell them the stories in their own language so that they understand. Because it doesn't matter what you believe, just that you believe. Even even atheists. I remember there was at one of my day jobs at a warehouse, we would listen to this radio show, and they were talking to an atheist on the air, and they couldn't figure out, it's like, dude, where is your how do you appreciate the beauty of the world? And the person was like, it's like, the world is beautiful, the universe is beautiful. You don't need a deity in order to appreciate the beauty of the world. And also, the other thing that the radio people kept bringing up is, well, what about morals? How can you possibly be a good person, a moral person, if you're not, if you don't have the fear of punishment, if you do something wrong? And it's like, being a good person does not depend on your believing in a punishment or reward system. And they couldn't get that through their heads. But even like that, to work with an atheist and talk in terms of science or in terms of physics and such, because everyone has their own language, everyone has their own personal mythology that is meaningful to them, and it's the way they relate to creation, the way they relate to Creator. Some might see Creator as God, some as the goddess, some as the flying spaghetti monster. And it really doesn't matter. And in fact, if I can throw in a shameless plug right now, coming up probably after the holidays, I'm revamping a class I used to teach called Shamanic Journey into Personal Mythology, where we use the shamanic journey to meet our own inner bard, storyteller, and then we explore what are the stories of our lives. What is our relationship with Creator? Who is Creator to us? Because our mythology, our own personal symbology, is how the universe speaks to us, through our imagination, through our thoughts. Your intuition, etc., will come in layers of symbology. Or your dreams, right? Your imagination. A lot of people, when they learn how to do shamanic journey, they're like, how do I know it's not just my imagination? Is this real, or am I just making it up? And the answer is always yes. It's your imagination. So yes, you are making it up. At the same time, the universe is using it as a what's the word I'm looking for? The universe is using it as your language to speak to you in ways that you will understand. That's why the different dream dictionaries, etc., don't really work, because say you dream about a wolf, some people wolves are the big bad wolf, is scary, untamed, wild, unpredictable. Other people, it's like wolf is the one who kind of maintains the balance of the forest and the wildlife. And so you can't really ever pin down, this is what this thing means. You know, even when I teach people about totem animals and spirit animals, I always recommend, you know, people want to jump and go grab one of the books that tells what that animal means, right? But what you really want to do is sit with it, ask yourself, okay, what does this animal mean to me? How do I feel when I think about this animal? Have I had a significant encounter with this animal? That kind of thing, and kind of decode the message from your own feelings, from your own symbology, rather than having someone else say, wolf means this, right? And then, once you've done the footwork and figure out what that animal means to you, how it relates to you, because it's relativity, right? We're all relations. It's about how we relate to the universe, creator, to all living things. And so once you figure that part out of how you relate to that particular animal, then it's good to go look in the books or look at what other people say. Because then most likely you will find validation that what they told you or what you intuitively gathered from that encounter will be validated, so that the next time something like that happens, you will have an easier time trusting your intuition or trusting what that animal spirit tells you. Oops. Felt like a little French cafe music would be appropriate. I said I grew up in Minnesota, so I'm kind of partial to accordion music. I do love a good polka. I actually drew a comic at one point about how there's certain distinct steps, like milestones in your spiritual growth. And one of those for me was when I started being attracted to accordion music rather than repelled by it. So as you can see, it's kind of a laborious process. And I'm not sure if this is my best work because I'm kind of self-conscious since I'm recording this. But The two things where I feel the most myself and the most centered is either in the woods or drawing a comic. Those are the two things that make me the most. It's like those are the, that's my bliss, that's my joy, that's my passion. So I kept the lines on the turkeys relatively thick. I'm just kind of going back over the foliage in the background just to darken it up a bit, but not so that it doesn't pop out as much as the turkeys. And once I'm done with the inking of the lines, I might go back through and shade in some of the background just to make the turkeys pop into the foreground a little bit more. But that will be kind of the last thing I do. The place where I went for this vision quest was it's such a magical place. I talked to the trees and the spirits of the land. This was one of the first, this was actually the first one I think I did at this location. So I didn't know the land very well, but I've been back, I think 4 or 5 times now. And the last couple of times, the ancestors of the land have actually made themselves known to me. They've appeared in shamanic journeys and visions while I'm there, welcoming me and thanking me for doing the spiritual work. Which is always nice to hear. This ancestor that I met, ancestor of the land, when he appeared to me, he was probably like 12 or 15 feet tall, and he was wearing a bird mask, like the long wooden, like the raven masks you might see, and he had wings. I couldn't tell that the wings were part of regalia he was wearing or if that was actually his arms. And I didn't know what kind of bird he was. I later decided it was a vulture because his wings were kind of silvery on the underside and darker on the back, like a vulture's. So that was pretty cool. All right. And I'll make this line here relatively thick since it's in the foreground. I try not to get too like back and forth when I'm doing this because it makes the lines kind of wonky. And sometimes I'll do like I'll kind of parallel the line already there and then fill it in. But I really love the thicker, clean lines.